Hey friends, it's Sarah, and I'm obsessed with Never Have I Ever. So Never Have I Ever is a teen show created by Mindy Kaling, and in the beginning of June it came out with its fourth and final season, and I binge watched it, and it just utterly consumed my entire brain. Davy lives in there rent-free. So I thought, what better way to pay homage to this incredible show than by talking about books that I think you would enjoy based on the different parts of the show that you liked. Fair warning, there are going to be spoilers for the show in this. I'll try to keep them minimal and not too specific, more about kind of the general topics in the show. But if you haven't watched a single episode of the show, then go do that first and then come back here. All right, so first up, just in general, Davy being a disaster, making really cringy decisions, and being an all-around mess. If you enjoy that messy teen aspect of the show, I think you'll really enjoy Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie. This book is a YA contemporary and it follows Ophelia as she's going through her last year of high school and just kind of making a mess of everything. She's a romantic at heart. She's always been known as kind of boy crazy. And in this book, she kind of discovers that maybe she isn't so straight after all when she starts to fall for another girl. It's got very similar disasters to Never Have I Ever, with crush mishaps, a friend group going through rough times and struggling to remain friends. It really is a coming of age through a series of really poor choices kind of book. So perfect for Davy's absolute chaos that she creates throughout the show. Up next, if you enjoy how competitive Davy is and her absolute incredible drive to get into Princeton, then I think you might like Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is an adult fiction book and it follows Carrie Soto, who is a famous tennis player, as she's making her comeback to hang on to her record amount of titles. And Carrie is incredibly dedicated. She is very focused and driven, and it follows her struggles to kind of regain her place in the order, in the hierarchy. There is also a teensy bit of romance in this that reminds me a little bit of Ben and Davy and how I think their romance would be later on as they mature. So there's that as well. But similar to Davy, Carrie also has to open up more emotionally as she goes through the story in order to have a fulfilling, successful life, and she has to realize that having this one goal is great, but that you need more in your life than just one thing. If you really appreciated the story about Davy's father dying and how Davy deals with her grief in that respect, then I think you would like The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X. R. Pan. In this YA book, Lee's mother dies by suicide, and Lee starts to see this bird everywhere and she thinks it's a reincarnation of her mom, and so she's translated her grief into this kind of manifestation of this bird that she sees everywhere. So this is kind of a contemporary magical realism sort of book, and it is pretty devastating. I think it is a different way of looking at grief than how Davy kind of does in Never Have I Ever, but it has those themes of feeling isolated and a little bit maybe crazy because of how you're dealing with it. And whereas Davy kind of channels her grief into her very hot temper and anger and her drive for success, Lee's is channeled into this bird that she thinks is her mother following her and watching over her. There's also an aspect of connecting with her culture. Lee goes back to Taiwan to meet her grandparents, and so there is that aspect of travel and reconnecting with culture and family as well. All right, if you are a Davy and Paxton truther, I'm so sorry, y'all. Sucks to be you, couldn't be me. But I think you would like Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is an adult romance that follows two characters who are complete opposites, who go for a one-night stand that ends up turning into more. Follows Alexis, who is an ER doctor, and she goes to this small town and meets Daniel, who's like a carpenter and also mayor of this tiny town. They have a one-night stand and end up having this kind of like ongoing fling where they're like living two very different lives and are like, it's just sex, it's nothing else. But then of course they catch feelings for each other, similar to kind of Paxton and Davy, where they are very different people and their relationship started as just Davy wanting to have sex with him. However, this story ends in a happily ever after for them. Spoilers. This is not the case in Never Have I Ever. It also has a really cute baby goat in it, so that's excellent as well. If you have enjoyed Ben and Davy's relationship, and especially the way that they banter with each other, I think you would absolutely adore Hanacon Carries On by Uzma Jalaluddin. This is a adult contemporary book that follows Hanacon, whose family's halal restaurant is kind of on the brink of bankruptcy when another halal restaurant moves in down the street and makes things even worse for her family. And of course, the son of the owner of the other restaurant is very cute, and Hana can't quite seem to keep away from him. Also, it is in development to be a film with Mindy Kaling, so excellent. But the way that Aiden, the love interest, and Hana banter in this is like textbook Ben and Davy. I like heard their voices when I was reading this book. It's incredible. So if you like their banter and their like sarcastic, witty little remarks, you're gonna love this book. If you like Ben and Davy's relationship going from academic rivals to lovers, you are going to love Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This follows Neil and Rowan, who, like Ben and Davy, are academic rivals. They're always at the top of all the like lists. They're competing for valedictorian, and it's their last year in high school, and every year at the end of senior year, the underclassmen prepare a like citywide scavenger hunt for seniors, and there is some sort of prize at the end. I can't remember what it is, but they end up having to team up for the scavenger hunt because they're both insanely competitive, so they're like, we gotta win this. And it ends up being that like maybe they weren't rivals after all, and maybe they've actually kind of been friends and start to fall for each other through this book. So it is excellent. It follows that same academic rivals to lovers sort of storyline. I will say that in the book, like Rowan and Neil are like rivals, but they're not really mean to each other. Whereas at the beginning of Never Have I Ever, Ben and Davy can be pretty horrifying to each other and say some really mean stuff. It's much chiller in Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, but it still has that great competitiveness and both of them being very driven, so perfect for Ben and Davy fans. If you are a fan of the UN, or if you like Fabiola, Eleanor, and Davy's friendship, then I think you would enjoy One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This book I have talked about several times. It is an adult romance, and the friend group in here is so fun. Each one of them has their own little thing. They're all very unique, and they all care for each other so deeply, similar to how Eleanor, Fabiola, and Davy are all very unique, doing their own things. You know, Eleanor's got her drama, Fabiola's doing robotics, Davy's being a disaster. But they still love each other and try and take care of each other, even though sometimes they make mistakes. But if you're looking for a really wholesome, eccentric friend group, One Last Stop is it. In addition to that, the story follows August, who has recently moved to New York, where she runs into a very attractive woman on the subway, only to discover that Jane Sue, the woman on the subway, is stuck in the 70s on the subway. She can't leave the train, and she's been on it since like the 70s. So they're trying to figure out how to get her out of this, like, not quite time loop, but this like time freeze, and also falling in love at the same time, which is tough when she can only be on the subway. As you can tell by the multitude of flags, I love this book. I have several videos where I talk about it. And it's just great. All the characters in here are amazing. Contrarily, if you hate the friend group and you want to read something about friends breaking up, When You Are Everything by Ashley Woodfolk is about Cleo and Layla, who are best friends until their friendship kind of exploded. So if you enjoy the parts in Never Have I Ever where Fabiola, Eleanor, and Davy do things that like hurt each other and break up their friendship for a bit, and you want to wallow in that pain, this is a book for it. It's about how important friendships are, about how those kind of breakups can be just as devastating, if not more so, than romantic breakups. And also kind of dealing with like what if I'm the reason why our friendship broke up. Also, I just looked at a place that I tabbed in it, but very Devi vibes. It says, somehow I'm a girl who makes all the wrong choices, but I'm also a girl who aches in every way to be wanted despite my mistakes. If that's not Devi, I don't know what is. If you really love the love triangle between Ben, Devi, and Paxton, then I think you might enjoy Felix Ever After by Case and Calendar. This follows Felix, who is a trans boy, and again, like, super romantic. When someone posts pictures of him pre-transition along with his dead name all over the school, he decides to get revenge by catfishing them. Only for that catfish scenario to end up with him in a sort of like love triangle, and it's just very chaotic, but also at the end very sweet and romantic. So a very interesting love triangle, and also accepting the love that you deserve, which I think is a lesson that Devi learns throughout the series as well. If you like the parts of Never Have I Ever where Devi is most in touch with her Indian culture, then you might enjoy The Henna Wars by Adiba Jagudar. So this follows Nishat, who is starting a henna business as part of like a school competition, only for another girl, Flavia, to also start a henna competition, and they end up having a crush on each other, but they're also rivals for this competition. Again, kind of Ben Devi vibes. But it also really talks about henna and like the culture around it, and whether Flavia, who is not Indian, should be partaking in it and should be profiting off of it, and what constitutes cultural appreciation versus cultural appropriation. So there's a lot of discussion around culture and who gets to partake in it and in which ways, and it's all around South Asian culture. And Nishat is from Bangladesh in this. The author is from Bangladesh. Good YA story about connecting with your culture. Finally, if your favorite part of Never Have I Ever is the relationship between Devi and her mom, I think you might enjoy Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This does not follow the same arc as Nalini and Devi have, but it is a memoir about Michelle's relationship with her mother after her mother has died. It also incorporates elements of food, so a lot of their relationship revolves around food and like feeding each other, and it's a very heartbreaking story about a really tough and complicated relationship between mother and daughter, where she loves her mom, but her mom wasn't always the kindest to her. So if you're looking for that complex kind of mother-daughter relationship, you might enjoy this. I also think you might enjoy Kaikei by Vaishnavi Patel, which is a retelling of the myth Ramayana, and it follows kind of like the evil queen in that story, but it follows her from when she was younger all the way up to becoming queen, having children. And there's a big part of this book that focuses on her being a mother and trying to make the right decisions for her children, as well as not being able to help her children or kind of course correct when things start to go not so great with them. So this is a fantasy book and is about a mother and sons mostly, but does have that complex familial relationship of trying to do your best for your children, but not being able to always help them when they're making poor choices. Those are all the books that I think you'd enjoy based on the different parts of Never Have I Ever that are your favorites. Let me know if you think they're accurate, if you have any other additions. Let me know what your favorite part of the TV show was, because when I say it's been like a month and I can't stop thinking about this show, I think my boyfriend is pretty sick of hearing about Never Have I Ever, so I'd love to have more people to rant about it with. So let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Now go read a book. I think you would love this book that's hiding down here. It's Sarah, and I have more brain rot to talk about. So then I think you'll really like Ophelia After All by... Oh, fuck. This follows a... This is it. Oh my god. Stop.